Right now, you might be feeling the quiet ache of a day that did not quite go as you had hoped. Perhaps you have been running through a mental checklist of things you left undone, or replaying a brief conversation where you feel your words were somehow misread. It is a specific kind of heaviness, the sensation that your own mind has become a house where you are no longer the one in charge of the keys. You are sitting in the dim, cooling air of the room, listening to the hum of the world settling outside your window. The texture of the evening is soft, like worn wool, and there is a gentle gravity pulling at your eyelids. Yet your thoughts refuse to land. They are like restless birds circling a tree, unable to find a branch where they might finally tuck their heads beneath a wing and sleep. You have come here, into this space of silence, because you know that carrying this weight is no longer serving you. You may feel like a fragile illuminated lantern, constantly straining to keep your wick trimmed and your flame steady, terrified that a sudden gust will leave you standing in the dark. But you are not broken and you are not failing. You are simply exhausted from trying to curate the view of your own life for an audience that isn't even watching. There is no requirement here for you to be anything other than exactly who you are. In this tired moment, we will not force your mind to become empty, because a mind that is forced to be empty is just another form of struggle. We will not battle your worries, because to fight a shadow is only to make it grow larger and more persistent. The surprising wisdom offered by the path of the Zen teacher is this: you do not achieve peace by defeating your thoughts. You achieve peace by recognizing that you have been treating every passing thought as a desperate, mandatory command. You believe that if a worry appears, you must investigate it, resolve it, and file it away before you can earn the right to rest. You think that if you do not perform the act of vigilant worry, something vital will fall apart. But the truth is much softer. The truth is that your peace has been waiting for you to simply stop picking up every single stone that lands on your path. Think of this as tending an internal shrine. You have been the keeper for a very long time, and you have been diligent. You have scrubbed the floors and dusted the altar, and you have spent hours ensuring that the brass vessels shine with a brightness that could guide a traveler from miles away. You believe the shrine exists because you keep it, that the light exists because you feed it. You are terrified that if you turn away, if you allow the brass to dull, if you let the temple fall into the natural silence of a forgotten place, then you will lose the only reason you have to be here. But what if the temple is not the shrine at all? What if you are the space in which the temple exists, and you are always free to step out into the night air and breathe? If it feels right, take a slow breath. Let the air move past your nose and into the depth of your lungs. As you exhale, imagine your shoulders dropping away from your ears, letting go of the invisible yoke you have been wearing all day. You do not need to solve your whole life tonight. You do not need to reconcile the past or secure the future. You are simply here, a person who is tired, a person who is deserving of a moment of mercy. The world will continue to spin without your constant supervision. The stars will not fall, because you chose to close your eyes when you feel the urge to pick up a thought, to analyze it, to turn it over in your hands, to see if it is sharp or soft. Pause. Notice the grip of your hand. Notice the tension in your jaw as you prepare to defend your own sanity. You can acknowledge the presence of the thought without agreeing to be its servant. You can watch it pass, like a cloud crossing the face of the moon, without feeling the need to catch it, hold it, or explain it to yourself. This is the first step into the quiet. It is the decision to stop being the architect of your own distress. Maybe you have felt this way before, where the very act of trying to be calm felt like yet another chore on your list. That is a natural response. That is your mind trying to do what it has always done, which is to build a structure of safety around you. But you are safe enough to soften. You are safe enough to let the tools of your trade, the polishing cloths, the heavy keys, the maps of all the things you have yet to do, fall to the floor. They are just objects. You are the one who is alive. And that is a miracle that does not need to be maintained or defended. As you settle deeper into the quiet of the room, let the awareness of your own body return to you. Feel the weight of your limbs, the softness of the fabric against your skin, the steady, rhythmic pulse of your own heart. This pulse is not a metronome for your productivity. It is a song of existence. It is the sound of life moving through you, independent of your plans, your failures, or your ambitions. It is the most reliable thing you have, and it will keep beating whether you are vigilant or whether you are fast asleep. There is an invitation here, whispered by the silence itself. It asks you to stop being the keeper of the lamp for a few hours. It asks you to step out of the shrine, to leave the door unlocked, and to stand in the dark without feeling the need to illuminate the path for anyone else. You might notice that the dark is not as frightening as you once believed. You might notice that the world is still there, beautiful and vast, even when you aren't actively trying to control the way it looks. The tension in your stomach can loosen now. The knots in your mind can begin to unspool. There is no exam tomorrow that you haven't already prepared for, and there is no catastrophe that your worrying can prevent. In a moment, we will look at a story of a keeper who realized he was polishing the brass when he should have been watching the sea. But for now, just stay here. Keep your awareness on the sensation of breathing. Do not chase the story. Do not chase the wisdom. Do not even chase the feeling of being calm. Simply allow yourself to be exactly as you are. A human being who is doing enough, who has done enough, and who is safe to stop trying for a little while. Your peace is not a destination you reach after you have fixed everything. Your peace is the field that is already here, waiting for you to walk into it, tired and unburdened. You are the space where the night meets the quiet of your own heart. Stay here, in this openness, and listen to the stillness grow. In a province far from here, where the coastline meets a steep and jagged ridge, there lived a man named Kaito. Kaito was the dedicated keeper of a small stone shrine perched on the highest cliff. It was a modest place, humble and grey, but Kaito believed that the sanctity of the entire village below depended entirely upon his vigilance. His primary small task was the maintenance of a large, heavy, brass telescope that sat on a sturdy wooden tripod at the center of the shrine's balcony. This instrument was quite old, its surface dull with salt and time, and Kaito spent his waking hours polishing the brass until it gleamed. He believed that if the telescope was spotless, he could guide the light of the stars to shine clearly upon the village, protecting them from bad harvests or sudden tempests. Kaito was a man of immense duty. He woke before the sun, his first action being to reach for the coarse woven cloth he kept tucked into his belt. He would wipe the brass casing. With rhythmic, circular motions, his eyes fixed on the metal, checking for any smudges or stray droplets of mist. He rarely looked out at the ocean that roared 300 feet below. He rarely looked up at the vast, unfolding expanse of the sky. To Kaito, the world was not the sea or the clouds, but the surface of the brass. He felt that if he could just keep the metal shining perfectly, he would finally earn the inner stillness he craved. He wanted to feel that his life was structured, necessary, and complete. One evening, a traveler arrived at the shrine. The man was old and wore robes the color of dry moss, and he carried nothing but a simple bamboo staff. He did not ask for food or shelter. He simply walked to the balcony, stood beside Kaito, and looked out over the darkening waves. Kaito was mid-swipe, his shoulder muscles tight, his focus entirely on a small dark spot near the eyepiece. He felt a prickle of irritation at being interrupted, but he kept his head down, working even harder to show his dedication. The old traveler remained silent for a long time. The only sound was the abrasive friction of the cloth against the metal, a sound Kaito usually found comforting, but which now felt thin and desperate in the presence of the quiet stranger. Finally, the traveler spoke. He did not look at Kaito. He looked toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to dip below the waterline. Bleeding, oranges, and deep violets into the clouds, he asked a single quiet question. Why do you spend your life cleaning the instrument when you have never once looked through the glass to see the stars? Kaito stopped moving, his hands stiff from hours of labor, hovered over the cool, polished surface of the telescope. He did not know how to answer. He wanted to explain that he was protecting the village, that he was ensuring. The light stayed pure, but the words felt hollow. The truth was that he was terrified of looking through the lens. He had spent years cleaning the brass to avoid the uncertainty of what he might see if he actually observed the world. He was afraid that if he looked through the glass, he would see how vast the ocean was, how indifferent the stars were to his small, careful efforts, and how little he actually controlled the climate of the valley below. The traveler turned to face him then, his expression gentle, devoid of any judgment. He reached out a hand, calloused and steady, and touched the barrel of the telescope. He did not ask to look through it. He did not criticize the work Kaito had done. He simply said that a lens is meant to be a bridge, not a barrier. He gestured toward the wide, breathing sea. He suggested that Kaito might try putting the cloth away, just for one night, and see what the darkness had to offer, without the constant intervention of his polishing. Kaito felt a strange internal resistance. It was the same feeling you might have when you are trying to let go of a worry that has defined your entire day. It felt like a betrayal of his purpose if he stopped cleaning. Who would he be? If he ceased his vigil, would the village be safe? The traveler sat on the stone floor, cross-legged, and simply waited. He did not press for an answer. He simply became a part of the quiet, as if he were another piece of the cliffside. As the last light faded, Kaito felt the heavy weight of the brass in his hands. It was cold, and the salt air was beginning to make it slick. For the first time, he noticed the exhaustion that lived in his own bones. He realized that his back was permanently arched from leaning over the tripod. His fingers were cramped from holding the cloth. He was tired, so deeply tired, and the exhaustion was not from the work itself, but from the constant, low-level anxiety that the brass might tarnish if he slept. He folded the cloth. He placed it inside the wooden chest. He kept in the corner a sound that felt unexpectedly loud in the stillness of the evening. He stood straight, a movement that felt foreign and fragile. and stepped away from the telescope. He walked to the edge of the stone wall and looked out. There were no stars yet, only the deep indigo expanse of the ocean and the soft, white foam of the waves hitting the rocks below. It was vast. It was unpredictable. It was completely outside his control. And for the first time in his life, Kaito realized that the world was still functioning perfectly well, even without his guidance. He felt a sudden, sharp pang of fear. What if the traveler was wrong? What if the stars were waiting for his light? But then, he heard the rhythm of the waves, a slow, deep, pulsing sound that seemed to match the beating of his own heart. The sea was not asking for his help. It was not checking to see if he was watching. It was simply existing in all its power and mystery, and Kaito was permitted to exist along with it. He sat beside the traveler. They did not speak. They did not need to. The telescope remained behind them, a dark, silent shape against the stone. Kaito watched the first star emerge, a faint, silver prick of light in the deepening navy of the sky. It did not need him to polish it. It did not need his permission to shine. It was simply there, and Kaito was there to see it. That was enough. That had always been enough. The weight in his chest began to dissipate, replaced by a cool, expansive sense of release. He realized that he had been building a cage out of his own devotion, and that the key had been in his pocket all along. He leaned back against the cool stone, closed his eyes, and felt the breeze move over his face, unfettered and free. The night was not an enemy to be defended against. It was a space to inhabit, a shelter to rest within. Kaito allowed his hands to go limp, resting them palms up on his knees, and he finally, for the first time in years, let himself breathe, as if there were nothing left to do. The story of the cliffside shrine is not a request for you to abandon your responsibilities or to stop caring about the light in your own life. It is not an invitation to become cold, detached, or indifferent to the world around you. When the old traveler asked Kaito why he spent his life polishing the brass instead of looking through the lens, he was not suggesting that the work was wrong. He was pointing to a deeper, quieter truth about how we navigate our own internal weather. Kaito's suffering did not originate from the fact that he was a keeper of a shrine. It originated from the way he had turned that service into a cage. He believed that his worth was measured by the shine of the metal, and he believed that the stars themselves relied on his constant, frantic intervention. This is the hidden shape of our own daily exhaustion. We take the inevitable disappointments of being human, the moments we feel overlooked, the situations that do not align with our plans, the sting of being misunderstood, and we layer a thick coat of resistance over them. We build a shrine in the mind, and we spend our entire lives polishing the fixtures. We think that if we analyze our past mistakes enough, if we rehearse our future conversations with enough precision, and if we maintain a perfectly curated image for the world to see, then we will finally be safe from the uncertainty of the sea below. We are not just carrying the weight of our life. We are carrying the weight of the effort required to make that life look like something it is not. Buddhist wisdom teaches that there are two kinds of pain, and recognizing the difference is the first step toward genuine rest. The first kind of pain is the rain. It is the inevitable weather of existence. It is the grief when something beautiful ends, the frustration when a door remains closed, and the loneliness that sometimes drifts through the heart like an uninvited guest. This rain is not a moral failing. It is not a sign that you are broken or that you have taken a wrong turn. It is simply the nature of the climate we inhabit. The Buddha was not suggesting that we stop feeling the rain. He was pointing out that we usually try to hold a heavy, iron umbrella over the entire world, desperate to keep ourselves from ever getting damp. This is the second kind of pain, the one that is entirely of our own making. It is the resistance to the rain. It is the internal voice that says, I should not feel this way, or if I were a better person, this wouldn't be happening to me. When you judge your own sadness, you turn it into shame. When you judge your own exhaustion, you turn it into a failure of character. You are essentially fighting the ocean with a teacup, and then you are angry at yourself for being tired. The second wound is not the event itself, but the internal demand that the event should have been different. It is the belief that you must be the keeper, the polisher, and the judge all at once. Consider how often you use your own mind to try and solve the future. You imagine that if you can just anticipate every possible gust of wind, you can protect the flame of your identity. You believe that if you worry enough, you are showing how much you care. But worrying is not caring. Worrying is a form of bracing against reality. It is a way of holding your breath, waiting for a storm that may never arrive, while the life you are actually living passes you by. You have become so focused on the brass instrument that you have forgotten to look out at the horizon. You have become so focused on the image of the shrine that you have forgotten that you are the space in which the shrine resides. Awareness is the capacity to notice the rain without immediately reaching for the umbrella. It is the ability to sit on the cliffside and acknowledge that the wind is blowing, that the waves are crashing, and that you are feeling a sense of unease without needing to rush to fix it. This is not the same as passivity. It is the ultimate form of strength. It takes immense courage to look at your own vulnerability and say, this is here, and it is allowed to be here. When you stop adding the layer of judgment to your experience, the pain of the rain remains, but the suffering of the resistance begins to dissolve. You are no longer fighting the nature of the world. You are finally learning to inhabit it. You have spent so many years trying to fix the self through the mechanism of shame, hoping that if you could just get the image right, the inner critic would finally be satisfied. But the critic is a hungry ghost. It is a structure built on the fear of being seen as insignificant. It wants you to stay busy. It wants you to stay polishing. It wants you to keep your focus on the small, manageable surfaces of your own faults, so that you never have to face the vast, terrifying, beautiful uncertainty of the open sea. You are not meant to be a statue in a temple. You are meant to be a person who breathes, who feels, and who learns how to let the weather move through them without trying to command the clouds. When you feel the pull to analyze a mistake from 3 years ago, or to rehearse a conversation that hasn't happened yet, try to recognize the mechanism of the polisher. Ask yourself what you are really trying to save by doing this work. Are you trying to protect your safety? Or are you trying to protect an image of yourself that you believe the world requires? The truth is that the world does not need you to be perfect. The world does not need you to be the keeper of a flawless brass instrument. The world needs you to be present. It needs you to be awake to the reality of the air, the sound of the surf, and the steady, unscripted beating of your own heart. This teaching is a soft invitation to put down the cloth. It is a permission slip to let the shine fade, to let the brass tarnish, and to let the temple doors remain open to the salt air. There is a deep, abiding peace in realizing that you do not have to curate your life to justify your existence. Your worth is not a performance. It is a fact of nature. as certain as the tide, and as ancient as the starlight. You are already whole, and your attempts to fix yourself are only hiding that wholeness from your own view. As you lie here, listen to the rhythm of your own breathing. Let it be as it is, not as you think it should be. If it is shallow, let it be shallow. If it is deep, let it be deep. You do not need to command your own lungs to serve a standard of perfection. You are being breathed by life itself. The same force that moves the ocean moves the air through your body, and you have nothing to do but allow it. This is the first taste of letting go. It is not an act of surrender to something external. It is an act of returning to the truth of what is already happening inside you. You might notice a feeling of fear arising as you hear this. That is the keeper in you, waking up and worrying about the brass. That is the part of you that believes everything will crumble if you stop your vigilance. Acknowledge that part of you. You do not have to silence it. You can imagine it as a nervous shadow sitting in the corner of your room. You can greet it with kindness, perhaps saying, "I see you are trying to keep us safe, but we are allowed to rest now." You do not have to evict the fear. You only have to stop letting it sit in the driver's seat. Let the thought of your duties, your unfinished tasks, and your perceived failings simply sit in the room with you. You don't have to carry them. You don't have to solve them. You don't have to polish them until they are shiny enough to be ignored. You can let them be what they are, small, passing shadows in the house of your mind. You are the space thoughts appear, and you are far more vast, more quiet, and more capable than any single worry. You are the cliffside, not the storm. You are the ocean, not the wave, and tonight you are being invited to stop working, to stop polishing, and to finally, truly, let yourself be. Now that you have sat with the image of Kaito and his telescope, let us bring this practice into the quiet space of your own body. You do not need to sit in any particular way. You only need to be present with the weight of your own existence. If it feels right, take a slow, deep breath, allowing the air to fill your lungs, and then leave your body completely, taking with it the tension you have been holding in your shoulders and your chest. There is no need to perform this breath correctly. There is no need to count the seconds or to aim for a specific outcome. Just notice the movement of the air. It is the most natural thing you do. Bring your attention to the thoughts that are currently circulating in the hall of your mind. Do not try to silence them, and do not try to rearrange them. Simply notice them, as if you were standing on the balcony of your own shrine, watching the clouds pass over the horizon. Perhaps there is a specific worry that keeps returning, like a wave hitting the same rock over and over. Perhaps there is a persistent question about your worth, or a memory of a day that felt incomplete. Give yourself permission to see this thought, not as a command to be obeyed, but as an object of interest. Imagine that the brass telescope Kaito was polishing is sitting right here in the room with you. It is a sturdy, heavy thing waiting to be used. Now, take that recurring thought, that restless, demanding worry, and imagine that you are carefully placing it onto the cold, polished surface of the telescope. You are not throwing it away. You are not dismissing its importance. You are simply setting it down. You are moving it from the center of your nervous system to the surface of the instrument. See it sitting there, resting on the brass, no longer tethered to your heartbeat or your breath. Notice how it feels to have that worry outside of yourself. Does the grip in your stomach loosen? Does the pressure behind your eyes begin to fade? You have been carrying that thought, nursing it, feeding it with your own exhaustion. But it does not belong to your core. It is an event in the world, not the essence of who you are. As you watch it rest on the telescope, observe the way it loses its urgency. It is just an object now, a piece of brass in the dim light of your room. It has no power to dictate your future unless you reach out and pick it up again. And for tonight, you are choosing to leave it there. If a new thought arises, or if the old one tries to leap back into your hands, do not judge yourself. That is just the habit of the keeper. It is the automatic reflex of a mind that has been trained to believe that vigilance is the same thing as safety. Gently, without any frustration, acknowledge that movement. You might say to yourself, with kindness, that it is okay to be a little bit anxious, but you are not required to follow that anxiety down every dark path. Return your attention to the physical sensation of the bed beneath you. Notice the weight of the blanket, the cool surface of the pillow, the simple, grounding fact that you are right here in this moment, and that nothing else is currently happening. There is no need for a breakthrough. Tonight, you do not need to reach a state of total, blissful emptiness. You are simply practicing the art of putting the cloth down. You are practicing the pause between the impulse to polish and the actual act of doing it. This pause is the threshold of your freedom. Even if you only manage to hold that pause for a single breath, you have succeeded. You have broken the chain of the second wound. You have chosen to let the brass be tarnished for one night, and in doing so, you have opened the door to a much deeper kind of rest. As you continue to breathe, allow the muscles of your face to soften. Let your jaw unhinge, letting go of the words you didn't say or the tone you wish you had used. Let your brow become smooth, releasing the furrow of your concentration. Your body is a sanctuary, and it is finally beginning to realize that it does not need to be a fortress. The doors are open, the wind is moving through. You are not losing anything by relaxing. You are only clearing away the dust of your own effort. If you find yourself drifting towards sleep, let that happen. Do not try to fight the heaviness, and do not try to stay alert for the sake of the practice. The practice is the rest. The practice is the moment you finally stop trying to be the keeper of your own anxiety. If your mind wanders back into the dark, simply notice it, and then gently return to the sensation of the telescope resting in the corner of your awareness. It is a quiet, steady presence. It does not need you to shine it. It only needs you to be the one who sits on the balcony and watches the sea. You have done enough today. You have carried your worries with a dedication that was, in its own way, a testament to how much you care about the world. But that care is being misdirected. You are trying to illuminate the whole ocean with a single handheld lens. Let the ocean be dark. It is deep enough to hold its own secrets, and it is wide enough to welcome your surrender. You are a passenger, not the captain. You are the space where the night is happening, and that space is infinite, undisturbed, and entirely safe. Take another breath, feeling the air move all the way down to your belly. With every exhale, imagine that you are releasing one more layer of the need to be perfect. The perfection you were chasing is an illusion, a reflection on the brass that has nothing to do with the starlight. You are already exactly who you need to be in this moment. You are a tired person, and you are allowed to sleep. You are allowed to stop polishing the world. You are allowed to be, in the quietest sense of the word entirely. wonderfully finished for the day. The silence in the room is not empty. It is filled with the support of the earth, the presence of your own life, and the promise of a morning that will arrive in its own time. You do not have to call the sun to rise. You do not have to organize the light. You can simply close your eyes, drift away from the shore, and let the tides of the night carry you into the deep, dark, welcoming water. You are safe, you are held, and you are finally, truly resting. In a valley hidden by thick, low-hanging mist, there lived a young student who spent his days trying to arrange the river stones into a perfect, straight line. He believed that the flow of the water was chaotic, and that, by creating a precise barrier of stones, he could bring order to the valley. Every morning, he would wade into the cold, rushing water, his hands aching as he moved heavy, moss-covered rocks. He was convinced that if he could just get the line perfectly straight, the river would stop roaring, the mist would clear, and he would finally find the quiet peace he had been denied for so long. His teacher, a woman who lived in a cabin built into the side of an old cedar tree, would often watch him from the bank. She never told him to stop. She never told him he was wasting his time. She would simply stand there, hands tucked into her sleeves, observing the way his shoulders hunched with the effort of fighting the current. One afternoon, when the spring rains had made the river particularly turbulent, the student slipped. He fell into the rushing water. His carefully placed stones scattered instantly by the power of the flood. He dragged himself to the bank, shivering, his palms scraped and bleeding, his face twisted in a mask of grief and fury. He had worked for weeks on that line, and now it was as if he had never moved a single rock at all. He sat on the damp earth, burying his face in his hands, weeping not just for the stones, but for the entire exhausting, futile rhythm of his life. He felt that if he could not hold the river in place, he had no value, no purpose, and no safety. The teacher walked over to him. She did not offer him a warm blanket or a kind word of false reassurance. She simply knelt beside him in the mud and picked up a single, wet pebble from the ground. She handed it to him. She asked him to hold it tightly in his closed fist. She asked him if the stone felt heavy. He nodded. She then asked him to tell her if the stone had any desire to be part of a straight line, or if it felt any sorrow for being moved by the water. The student looked at the smooth, grey rock in his palm. It felt cold and solid and completely indifferent to his struggle. He realized that the stone was just a stone. The river was just a river. The only thing that was struggling, the only thing that was suffering, was his own mind, which insisted that the world should behave according to his design. The teacher stood up and pointed to the churn of the water. She explained that the river was not trying to be chaotic, and it was not trying to be orderly. It was just moving. She reminded him that the flood was not a punishment for his failure, and it was not an obstacle to his happiness. It was simply the weather of the valley. She told him that he was welcome to arrange the stones if he enjoyed the work, but that he had to stop believing that the stones were the fence that kept his soul safe. The student remained on the bank for a long time. He watched the water continue its relentless, swirling journey. He felt the familiar, frantic urge to stand up and start moving the rocks again, to rebuild the wall, to regain the feeling of control. That was the addiction of his mind. That was the habit he had polished until it shone like gold. But this time, instead of leaping back into the water, he took a deep, shaky breath He let his shoulders drop. He opened his hand, and he set the pebble down on the grass, not in a line, not in a pattern, but just where it landed. He did not become a different person that day. He did not lose his desire for order, and he did not suddenly find the valley filled with sunshine. But he did make one small, vital shift. He stopped fighting the river. When he walked back to the cabin, he didn't look at the water as a problem to be solved. He looked at it as a reality to be lived. He had spent his whole life trying to be the dam, and now he was beginning to realize that it was much more peaceful to be the water. This is the deeper transformation that happens when you stop trying to be the keeper of your own shrine. You realize that the river of your life, the rush of your emotions, the flow of your circumstances, the unpredictable nature of your own thoughts, is not something that can be dammed or forced. You do not have to fix your mind to find the peace you are looking for. You only have to stop trying to be the one who manages the flow. Think of the way you handle your own inner turbulence. When a difficult feeling arrives, your immediate response is to build a wall. You want to analyze it until it is exhausted. You want to categorize it until it feels manageable. You want to build a story around it so that you can feel like you have successfully dealt with it. But every wall you build is just another thing you have to maintain. Every stone you move is another thing you have to worry about losing when the flood comes. The true secret of the Zen path is not in the architecture of your defenses. It is in the willingness to let your hands go limp, to sit on the bank and to watch the water pass without needing to intervene. You have probably spent years feeling like you are failing because your inner life does not look like a neat, straight line. You think that because your mind wanders, because your heart breaks, and because your circumstances change, you are somehow doing it wrong. But look at the valley. The valley is not wrong. The river is not wrong. You are the only one who thinks that life should be static, predictable, and perfectly aligned. When you realize that the messiness of your life is not a flaw in your character, but the very nature of existence, a tremendous amount of pressure vanishes. You can stop apologizing for being human. You can stop apologizing for being in flux. This shift in perspective is subtle, yet it changes everything. It is the difference between a life lived in a fortress and a life lived in the open air. In the fortress, you are safe from the wind, but you are also cut off from the sky. In the open air, you are exposed, but you are also free. You do not have to give up your preferences. You can still value order. You can still cherish quiet. You can still set goals for your life, but you stop believing that your survival depends on those things going exactly according to your plan. You stop treating every deviation from your design as a personal crisis. Observe how your own mind tries to build these stone walls when you feel insecure. Notice when you start to rehearse a conversation because you are afraid of being misunderstood. That is a stone you are moving. Notice when you start to judge your own exhaustion because you feel you should be more productive. That is a stone you are moving. Notice when you start to replay a past mistake, trying to rewrite the history to make it feel less painful. That is a stone you are moving. Each of these movements is an attempt to control the river. Each of them is a form of resistance that, in the long run, only exhausts your spirit. What would happen if, just for 1 hour, you decided to let the stones lie where they fell? What would happen if you allowed your mind to be exactly as scattered, or as sad, or as quiet or as busy as it naturally is. You don't have to encourage it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to evaluate it. You only have to observe it as if you were the teacher sitting on the bank. You can notice the river churning, and you can say to yourself, "This is the current today." You don't have to swim in it, and you don't have to build a barrier against it. You can just watch. This is the compassionate action we can offer to ourselves. It is the act of putting the pebble down. It is the realization that we don't have to be the masters of our own destiny to be worthy of our own peace. We are part of the flow. We are a wave, a ripple, a stone, and a drop of water all at once. We are not the ones who define the path of the river, and we are not the ones who decide when the sun rises or when the rain falls. We are the witnesses of the valley, and our only job is to be present for the unfolding of it all. As you lie here, feel the sensation of your body becoming heavier, the floor beneath you, the mattress supporting you, the gravity holding you. All of these are the silent partners of your existence. They do not require you to hold them. They do not require you to build a wall to justify your presence on this earth. You are allowed to be here. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be unrefined, unfinished, and completely unarranged. Imagine your thoughts as the water in the river. Let them flow. If a thought is loud, let it roar. If a thought is gentle, let it murmur. Do not try to trap them in a line. Do not try to sort them into good and bad. They are just the movement of the day, passing through the valley of your awareness. As they pass, watch them go. Do not reach out to catch them. Do not lean over the bank to see where they are heading. Just let them dissolve into the distance, returning to the vast, mysterious source from which they came. You are moving into a deeper level of quiet now. It is not the silence of a vacuum where nothing exists. It is the silence of a deep valley where everything is allowed to be exactly as it is. It is the silence of trust. You are trusting the process of your life. You are trusting the wisdom of your body. You are trusting the fact that you do not need to be the keeper of the shrine or the builder of the walls to be safe. You are held by the same life that moves the river, and you are being carried toward rest. There is no more work to do tonight. The stones can stay in the water. The river can continue its course without your supervision. You are done with the business of building. You are done with the burden of justifying your existence. You are simply a part of the night. A breath, a pulse, a quiet awareness flickering in the dark. You are free to let go. You are free to dissolve into the silence. You are free to be. The reason you have felt so tired for so long is not because you are weak, but because you have been engaged in an impossible labor. You have been attempting to hold the entire architecture of your life in place through the sheer force of your own mental vigilance. Every worry you have nursed, every rehearsal of a difficult conversation, every moment spent replaying a mistake, has been an attempt to build a wall around your inner world. You think that if you can just anticipate every threat, if you can just understand exactly why a situation went wrong, you will be safe from the next gust of wind. But this is the paradox of the more you polish the brass, the more you focus on the surface, the less you actually experience the light itself. This is where the mind weaves its most intricate web. We often believe that suffering is a sign that we have failed to control our circumstances. When life becomes difficult, when a relationship falters, when the future looks dim, when your own heart feels heavy, you interpret this as a directive to work harder. You assume that if you feel pain, you must have done something wrong. and that if you simply worry enough, you can rectify the error. You turn the pain of the event into an identity of failure. You start to believe that you are a person who is prone to catastrophe, and so you begin to manage your existence with the constant, grinding friction of self-judgment. This is the second arrow. It is the sting of the event, multiplied 1,000 times by the voice that says, "You should have been different. You should have been stronger. Or you should have been more prepared." Think of your consciousness as a great hall that is meant to be open to the weather. When the wind of life blows through, it brings in leaves and rain and the scent of distant fields. That is the first experience of being alive. It is natural and it is honest, but instead of letting the wind pass, your mind runs to the door and slams it shut. Terrified of the mess, you start to sweep the floor with a frantic intensity, trying to hide the fact that the wind came in at all. You start to blame yourself for the leaves on the floor. You start to fear the wind before it even begins to blow. You spend your life as a concierge of a closed room, terrified of the very elements that are meant to keep you connected to the world. This resistance is the source of your deepest exhaustion. It is not the wind that wears you down. It is the act of slamming the door. It is the act of sweeping the floor. It is the act of convincing yourself that you are a bad keeper, because you cannot keep the room perfectly still. The Buddhist insight is not that we should become indifferent to the wind or that we should love the rain. It is that we should recognize our own role in the struggle. We can acknowledge that the wind is cold, that the rain is messy, and that we feel a natural human vulnerability without rushing to lock the doors. When we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, we discover a vastness in ourselves that is completely untouched by the weather. Consider how often you use your own mind to rehearse the future. You are trying to predict the path of the storm so that you can move your furniture before the rain arrives. But life does not move in straight lines, and your predictions are rarely accurate. All you succeed in doing is living the storm twice, or 3 times, or 100 times before it even happens. You are building walls in your mind that take up the space where your actual life is supposed to be. When the storm finally comes, you are already spent. You are already depleted by the work of your own resistance. You have nothing left to give because you have been using your reserves to fight a ghost. This is why self-forgiveness is so essential to the practice of peace. Forgiving yourself does not mean that you approve of your past mistakes or that you wish to ignore the impact you have had on others. It means that you recognize the futility of using shame as a tool of management. You have been trying to fix the self through the mechanism of self-punishment, hoping that if you beat yourself up enough, you will finally become someone who is safe from suffering. But shame is not a teacher. It is a jailer. It keeps you trapped in the past, replaying the scenes where you think you went wrong, and it prevents you from being present in the only moment where change is actually possible. You do not have to be a finished product to be worthy of rest. You do not have to have resolved your conflicts, settled your debts, or achieved a perfect state of mental clarity before you are allowed to stop polishing the brass. You can be a work in progress, and you can be a person who makes mistakes, and you can still be a person who is allowed to sit on the balcony and watch the sea. The temple of your life is not meant to be a museum of your achievements. It is meant to be a space where you can breathe, where you can feel, and where you can simply be. When you feel the pull to analyze a thought or to judge your own fatigue, notice the contraction in your body, that is, the physical manifestation of the door slamming shut. It is the tightening of the muscles in your chest, the clenching of your jaw, the bracing of your spirit. That contraction is not a necessity. It is a habit. And like any habit, it can be interrupted. You do not have to wait for the situation to change before you can soften. You do not have to wait for the world to become predictable before you can trust your own heart. You can soften right now, in the midst of your busyness and in the middle of your uncertainty. The truth is that life will always have its currents. The river will always be moving, and the wind will always be shifting. There will be seasons of abundance and seasons of scarcity, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. Your effort to create a permanent, unchanging reality is the most profound source of your suffering. You are fighting the very nature of existence. But when you align yourself with the movement, when you allow yourself to be the space rather than the object, you find a peace that is independent of the weather. You become like the mountain, allowing the clouds to pass, unmoving and untouched, yet entirely connected to the sky. This does not mean you stop living. It does not mean you stop participating. It means you participate with a different kind of energy. You can work, you can create, and you can strive for what matters to you, but you do not carry the burden of the outcome as if it were the proof of your worth. You perform your actions as a gardener tends a plant, offering water and light, but ultimately allowing the earth and the rain to determine how the flower grows. You are the tender of the life, but you are not the creator of the life. When you accept this distinction, the weight of your responsibility changes. It is no longer a crushing, lonely burden. It is a shared, beautiful participation in the unfolding of the world. As you lie here, listen to the way your own heart beats. It is a rhythm that does not ask for your permission, and it does not wait for you to organize your thoughts before it pulses again. It is a life that is happening through you, and you are being supported by it in every single breath. Let yourself fall into the cadence of that life. Let yourself be carried by the movement of the night. You are not required to hold anything up tonight. You are not required to be the keeper of anything at all. You are just a human being, resting in the quiet of your own space, and that is a profound and perfect thing to be. The shadows in your room are not empty. They are full of the silence that you have been looking for. The air is not cold. It is just clear. You are settling into the truth of your own presence, and you are finding that the room, the night, and the breath are all joining together to hold you. You have walked a long way to get to this moment of stillness. You have traveled through the storm of your own mind to reach the bank of the river. Now you can finally sit down. You can let the stones fall from your hands. You can let the river run its course. You can be, simply and completely, just who you are. You might wonder how this perspective shifts when you are out in the world, away from the quietude of this late hour. It is one thing to sit on the balcony of your inner shrine while the night is still, but it is another to maintain that sense of spaciousness when you are caught in the busy currents of your daily life. The practice of putting the cloth away is not meant to be reserved for the moments when you are already still. It is most needed in the moments when the rhythm of the world threatens to pull you back into the habit of frantic polishing. Think of the times when you are waiting for a reply to a message, your thumb hovering over the screen, your mind already spinning a dozen stories about why the silence has lasted so long. In that moment, you are reaching for the cloth. You are trying to wipe away the uncertainty of the situation with your own agitation. You believe that if you worry enough, or if you plan your next response with enough care, You can control the outcome, but you are only polishing the brass, and the anxiety you feel is not a tool of connection. It is just the weight of your own resistance. Next time you find yourself in that state of waiting, see if you can pause. Feel the tension in your hands, the shallow depth of your breath, and the way your mind is trying to project a future that hasn't yet arrived. Instead of leaning into the urge to fix it, try to simply stand on the balcony, acknowledge that the uncertainty is uncomfortable, and acknowledge that you have a desire for clarity, but refuse to let that desire turn into a campaign of suffering. You do not have to abandon your care for the person or the situation. You only have to abandon the illusion that your distress is the price you must pay for that care. You can be present with the discomfort without needing to solve it. This is the practice of letting the river flow, without trying to build a dam out of your own nerves. The same is true for the nights. When sleep eludes you, you lie in the dark, and your mind begins to scroll through the tally of your shortcomings. You replay a conversation from the afternoon, wondering if you sounded foolish, or if you were misunderstood. You compare your life to the lives of others, feeling the familiar, hollow ache of being behind or not enough. You are convinced that if you just solve these thoughts, you will earn the right to sleep, but the logic is backward. You are not keeping yourself awake because you have problems to solve. You are keeping yourself awake because you are still standing in the center of the shrine, frantically buffing the fixtures while the stars are already waiting for you outside. When these thoughts pull you into the dance, you don't need to fight them. You don't need to force your mind to become blank. Simply notice that you are doing the work of the polisher again. Say to yourself quietly that it is okay to be human and that you have done enough for one day. You are not a failure because you have questions, and you are not a mistake because you have worries. You are simply a person navigating a complex existence, and your mind is doing what it has been conditioned to do. You can thank your mind for its vigilance, acknowledge the beauty of your desire to get things right, and then gently put the cloth back in the chest. You do not have to be the keeper tonight. The doors are already unlocked, and the air is free for you to breathe. You may find yourself in moments during the day where you feel the pressure to perform, to present a version of yourself that is polished, steady, and unbothered, even when your heart feels like it is carrying a heavy stone. This is a common form of the second wound. You feel the pain of your own exhaustion or your own doubt, and then you add the layer of shame. Because you believe you should be stronger, you spend your energy maintaining the illusion, and that effort leaves you brittle. True strength is not the ability to hide your cracks. It is the ability to walk through the world with your honest self, knowing that you are complete even when you are weary. You can be kind to others. You can be effective in your work. And you can be present in your relationships without needing to wear a mask of perfection. Caring for others does not require you to hold your own life in a state of desperate tension. You can love deeply, you can work hard, and you can show up for the people you value without gripping the outcomes so tightly that you crush the very life you are trying to nourish. Think of how a tree grows. It reaches for the light, it pulls water from the earth, and it expands with the seasons. It does not worry about the wind. It does not rehearse the coming of winter with a frantic, agitated mind. It simply participates in the movement of its own life. You are allowed to participate in yours with the same kind of trust. You can be disciplined, you can be intentional, and you can be reliable without sacrificing your own peace on the altar of your own anxiety. There is a profound freedom in realizing that you do not need to earn your rest. Many of us have been taught that rest is a reward we receive only after we have achieved a certain state of completion. We think that if we stop, everything will unravel. But rest is not an achievement. It is a biological and spiritual necessity. It is the natural state of the river when the storm has passed. When you give yourself permission to be still, you are not neglecting your responsibilities. You are returning to the source of your own vitality. You are reclaiming the space where your wisdom actually resides, away from the chatter of the polisher and the demands of the ego. Forgiveness is another way we put the cloth away. We carry so much around with us, the grievances, the regret, the shame of our own past actions. We keep these things in the chest next to the telescope, taking them out every night to see if they are still sharp enough to hurt us. But forgiveness is not about pretending that the past did not happen. It is not about absolving ourselves of the need for growth. It is about deciding that the weight of the past is no longer helping us navigate the present. When you forgive yourself, you are simply saying that you are ready to stop using your own story as a weapon. You are ready to be a person who is capable of change, rather than a person who is forever defined by a single static moment of failure. As you sit with this, notice the rhythm of your own heart once more. It is not a metronome for your productivity. It is the sound of your existence, a living pulse that knows nothing of your plans or your worries. It is the most reliable thing you have, and it will keep beating even when you let go of the keys to the temple. You are coming to the end of the work, not because you have fixed everything, but because you have finally realized that you didn't need to fix anything at all. You were already enough. You were already held. You were already home. Let the awareness of this truth settle into your body, letting your muscles release the last traces of their effort. You are simply a person who is here in this room on this night. And that is a beautiful, complete, and sufficient thing to be. The river of your life will continue to flow tomorrow. But for now, you can step out of the current and simply watch the starlight on the surface of the water. You are safe to let the silence in. You are safe to let go of the keys. You are safe to drift into the quiet. The brass telescope is still sitting in the corner, dark and silent, against the stone of the shrine. You do not need to check it. You do not need to make sure the lens is clear. The stars are moving across the sky, indifferent to the polishing, and the ocean is breathing against the cliffside, unbothered by your vigilance. All the work you performed, all the hours spent, hunched over that cold metal, they have served their purpose. They brought you here, to this exact moment where you can finally sit down. The cloth is folded away, the chest is latched. The weight you have been carrying is no longer yours to sustain. Feel the heavy, grounding sensation of your body settling into the mattress. It is as if you are becoming a part of the earth, a sturdy, quiet foundation that needs to do nothing but exist. You have spent so much time being the keeper, the one who watches, the one who worries, the one who maintains. Now, you are simply the one who is here. Let your legs go heavy, feeling the slack in your muscles as they finally cease their holding. Let your arms lie limp at your sides, the fingers curled slightly, having released their grip on the fabric of your life. The air in the room is cool and soft, moving over your skin with a gentle, rhythmic flow. It is the same air that moves over the cliff, over the sea, over the stars. There is no separation between the breath that fills your lungs and the breath that moves the night. You are not an island, isolated, and needing to defend your borders. You are a permeable, living part of this expanse. As the air enters you, it brings the stillness of the dark, As the air leaves you, it takes the final, lingering remnants of your effort. You do not have to guide this process. You do not have to ensure the depth of the inhalation. You are being breathed. Notice the quiet. At the center of your chest, it is not an empty space. It is a space of waiting, of potential, of deep, resonant peace. Imagine the worry you placed on the telescope fading away. The brass is cold, the lens is dark, and your hands are empty. There is nothing left to polish. The image of the shrine is dissolving into the shadows of the room, and you are returning to the truth of your own being. You are the space where the night happens. You are the quiet witness who does not need to intervene to be worthy. If a thought flickers at the edge of your awareness, let it be. Do not chase it and do not shove it aside. It is just a ripple on the surface of the lake, a small passing disturbance that has no power to alter the depth of the water. Let the thought bloom, let it fade, and let it return to the stillness. You are the lake, not the ripple. You are the deep, dark, welcoming water that remains when the surface movement has settled. You have no more questions to answer tonight. You have no more problems to solve. The world will be waiting in the morning, and it will handle itself just as it always has. Your heartbeat is slowing, matching the rhythm of the tide far below the cliff. It is a slow, steady, pulsing sound, a reminder that you are alive and that your life is enough. You do not need to do anything to earn the next second. You do not need to prove your existence through your actions. You are simply here, a quiet presence in the vastness of the dark. The house is still. The night is deep, and the keeper has finally gone to sleep. Let the boundaries of your body seem to soften. Feel the space around you expanding until it feels as though you are resting under the open sky, cradled by the very universe you were once so afraid of managing. The stars are there, shining with a light that asks for no validation. The ocean is there, moving with a power that requires no direction. And you are there, resting in the safety of your own heart. Everything you were holding has been set down. Everything you were fearing has been seen, and everything you were seeking has been here all along, waiting for the moment you finally allowed yourself to stop. The darkness is not a void. It is a velvet, protective cloak. It is the original home, the place where all things rest and renew. Give yourself permission to slip into it completely. Let the final fragments of your identity, the roles, the titles, the burdens, the names, melt away into the silence. There is only the breath. There is only the pulse. There is only the vast, quiet, unburdened existence of the night. You are finished with the work. You are finished with the searching. You are finally home. The tide is rising, softly, slowly, pulling the last remnants of your wakefulness toward the deep. There is nothing left to hold. There is nothing left to fear. There is only the slow, rhythmic surrender to the peace that has been waiting for you in the center of your own silence. You are safe. You are held. You are enough. And if the peace you have been searching for was never something to be attained, but rather the quiet, enduring space that remained after you finally stopped trying to polish the world,